Hi friends, today I'd like to show you how I made a card using the supplies from Papercraft Society February subscription box that I designed. My previous video is an unboxing one, so if you want to know what's included in the set, just check out the previous tutorial. And here are some examples that I've made using this set, and you can find step-by-step tutorials on how to make them in the booklet that is included in the box. You will also find a lot more inspirational projects that are created by the design team. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how I made this shaker card. To create a card base, I'm going to use a sheet of gray cardstock that is included in the box. This one is A5 size. Now I'm going to fold it in half, and this will give me an A6 card base. A6 is about 4 1/8 by 5 3/4 of an inch. Next, I'm going to use a sheet of white cardstock. This one is from my stash, and I'm going to trim it down to be just a tiny bit smaller than the card base. This way I'll have a thin border all around the perimeter. Then I'm going to place this white panel into the embossing folder that is included in the box, and I'm going to send it through the die cutting machine. As always, if you are interested in the tools and supplies that I'm using, the link is down below in the description. The next step is creating a circle shaker window, so I'm going to use one of the circle dies from my stash, and the one that I'm using is 2 3/4 of an inch. If you have a die that is just a tiny bit larger or smaller, it will also work fine. Die cutting a circle window can flatten the embossing just a little bit, so what you can do is to place this panel back into the embossing folder and send it through the machine again, and it will bring it all back. So this is the result that we should get at the moment. Now we have a white panel with nice deep embossing and a die cut circle window. Now I'm going to create a backdrop for the shaker window, and I'll be using one of the papers that are included in the box. I'm going to make it a bit smaller than the white panel, so you will only see it through the window and not around the panel. I'm using a tape runner to attach the backdrop right onto the card base, but I'm not going to attach the embossed panel so far. What I am going to do is to create a little scene using the dies and stamps from the box. Now I'm using a white cardstock to create a thin strip, and this one is going to be a shelf to place my tea set on. I'm going to stamp down the tea set image from the set on a white cardstock. The ink I'm using is a dark blue one, and this one is also included in the box. This ink is permanent once it's dry, so it's perfectly suitable for coloring with water-based media. I'm using a stamping platform in case I have to stamp this image twice for better impression. You can totally let the ink air dry, or you can use a heat tool to speed up the drying. I'm not going to perform any advanced coloring technique. After all, this tea set is meant to be blue and white as it is now. All I'm going to do is to use a light gray marker. This is a Hickory Smoke distress marker, and I'm just going to add a few lines here and there to indicate the shading. Then I'm also going to use a light blue marker. This one is a tumbled glass distress marker, and I'm going to color some of the tiny flowers in the stamped pattern. Then I'm going to use a matching die that is also, of course, a part of the set. I'm placing it onto my stamped image, taping it down, and then I'm going to die cut the entire tea set. This is what it looks like. This image is quite small and very detailed. I'm also going to use a couple more stamps from the set to create the sentiment. So I'm using the same white cardstock that I used for the focal image, and I'm going to stamp out the tiny square frame first. I'm using the same navy blue ink here. Inside the square frame I have positioned a sentiment that is going "You're terrific." I'm going to use a 1-inch square die, this one is not the part of the box, to die cut the sentiment. Of course, you can totally use a paper trimmer or the scissors. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of coloring to this label as well, and I'm using the same tumbled glass marker that I used for the tea set, but instead of coloring the inside of the frame, I'm going to color it on the outside, and this will help it to stand out more. Before I start attaching the images onto the background, I want to take the light gray ink from the set and I want to apply some of it with a sponge dauber, and this way I'm going to darken up the background and bring down the contrast, and this way my little images will stand out even more. Next, I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue and attach the tea set onto the thin paper strip, which is going to be a shelf. I'm placing my panel onto the card base, and this way I can see exactly where I should attach all the images. And then once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to use the liquid glue and attach them onto the pattern paper background one by one. So once my backdrop is ready, I can start assembling the shaker element. So I have applied some double-sided tape at the wrong side of the panel as well as onto the piece of acetate, and I'm sticking it down just like this. I have applied a double layer of foam tape at the wrong side of the panel. Now I'm peeling off the liner and then I'm going to add the sequins. I'm adding some pink, silver and clear sequins from my stash. Instead of applying them inside the window on a panel, I'm adding them right onto the image on a card base. This way it will be much easier to center the panel on a card. I'm just making sure I'm centering it nicely, leaving just a very thin border all around the panel, and then I'm pressing it down to seal all the sequins inside. And this is what the finished project looks like. It's made entirely of the products included in the set, except for some basics like white cardstock, adhesives and sequins. I'm encouraging you to check out the Papercraft Society subscription box. The link is in the description. They have a really flexible subscription plan and great value for the money. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.